Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to check us out and see what's going on in the arena and indoor football world. We have a really good show for you today with an interview with defensive end Jonathon MacCollister. He's plays for the Albany Firebirds. He played a little bit for the Oregon Black Bears in 2024 as well before coming over to Albany and finishing the season with them. Great story of perseverance. Won't get too far into it now, but you'll have to check out the interview in a couple of minutes to listen to his football journey and some of the stuff that he's had to fight through. And it's a great story of perseverance. So really happy that Jonathon was able to take the time to come on the show and talk shop. I've been talking with Jonathon for a little bit on social media, so glad that we were finally able to make it happen. After that, we'll dive into some not so great news in the IFL, as well as some transactions that have been announced in the IFL as well. And then we'll talk about some of the signings that have been announced in the AF1. So got a pretty decent off-season size show for you. But before we dive into any of that, if you could give us a follow on our socials, is at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on Instagram, we're on X/Twitter, and we are on TikTok. So give us a follow on each of those. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up on this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. Let me know what your favorite signing in the IFL or AF1 has been so far this offseason. Let's see who listens to the call to action. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please go and rate the show page, like the episode. I think you like the episode or download the episode. I don't know. Just click all the buttons on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Something will help us out. So every button you click helps. So appreciate the support so far, and all this subscribers and ratings that we've been getting really helps out. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into our interview with Jonathon. All right, so joining us on the show this week, we have an explosive defensive end who recently re-signed with the Albany Firebirds of Arena Football 1. He's been in the arena game for a couple years now, and I'm excited to chop it up with him. His name is Jonathon MacCollister. Jonathon, thank you so much for joining the show. How's the offseason treating you so far?
Pretty good, man. Appreciate you for having me. Man, I'm going crazy in the gym and putting in the field work now, so I'm excited for 2025.
Yeah, I see you starting to post some of the content about what you're working out. I'm excited to see what you post. I might have to take some notes from you.
Take some notes, man. People have been telling me I should start making videos, so I was like, why not? Might as well do it. I'm in the gym as it is, so I might as well do something with it.
Yeah, you're already there. You're already working out. Might as well boost the social profile a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so I was doing some prep work for this and diving in a little bit, and I came to the realization that you are the first Albany Firebirds signing of the Arena Football 1 era. Like, you're going to be a trivia question one day. How's that feel?
Oh, man, it's an honor, man. And it actually adds a little added pressure to me. Pressure I like, because, like, that's a great honor to be the first player signed. I'm very thankful for Coach Ware and the coaching staff to bring me back, and the owners in the front office, because I absolutely love my time in Albany, and I'm excited to be back in the organization.
Absolutely. So before we dive too far into arena football, tell me about your football journey that led you to arena football and how you kind of got involved with it.
Okay, so I started playing. I played high school football at Bishop Moore Catholic High School in Orlando. Ended up winning a state championship there in 2015. From there, I ended up signing to Notre Dame. Went up there for my first semester. Second semester, I ended up transferring to Central Florida, UCF. I had to sit out in the 2018 season because of the transfer rules. They weren't the same as they are now, which kind of sucked a little bit. So I thought I was going to miss out, because as the bowl game started approaching, I saw that we got selected for the Fiesta Bowl. Everybody was getting PlayStations. It was a PlayStation Fiesta Bowl at the time. So I was like, dang, man, I don't even get a PlayStation. I was all bummed out. And also I was bummed out for the opportunity to go chase a ring. But I ended up being able to, I got cleared from my eligibility because I was there a whole year, because I transferred in. Cool. I transferred in January. So my first collegiate game was actually the Fiesta Bowl as a tight end, and that was pretty awesome. A surreal moment for me walking into that stadium in Arizona. It was awesome. Ended up playing a little bit in 2019. My first catch was actually a touchdown, so that's pretty cool.
There we go.
Yes, sir. That's a cool stat. Played a little bit in 2019, like I said, and then I ended up leaving UCF after the 2019 season. I ended up getting medically disqualified. I ended up getting cleared when I left UCF to go play again. So I went up to West Florida for a little bit. Things didn't
Okay.
work out there, or I say financially. So I just decided to take a year off from football and just to recoup. And during that year off, I just let my body rest because I've been playing football since 2009. So
Right.
a lot of bangs, a lot of beat ups. But took a year off, got my mentals right. Then after that year, I started training again, and I fell in love with the gym because I started doing it on my own. So I got like a different sense of it because before I was working out in a college program, so it was more
Mm-hmm.
seen as like a mandatory thing to do. But
Yeah.
I developed my own routine with it. I had a goal to transform my body, and I got to that goal. So with that goal, I was like, you know what? I might as well, with the way I'm looking, I might as well try to play football again. And that's what
Yeah.
led me into arena football. I saw Orlando Predators posted an open tryout, and I ended up going to that.
Very cool. And that's how you just kind of fell into it and you started
Yes,
playing
sir.
again. So
Yeah. So
growing
yeah.
up in the Central Florida area, you mentioned going to Bishop Moore in Orlando. Did you know about arena football and the Predators growing up, or was it something you discovered a little bit later on in life?
No, I definitely knew about the AFL because when I was playing the AAU football, I played out for the Paisley Bandits or the Land Bandits. We actually had a couple of arena football guys that played for the Jacksonville Sharks and
Oh, cool.
yeah, Orlando Predators at the time.
Very cool. So being able to play for the hometown team, that's pretty unique. Like not everyone gets that opportunity. So how cool was it being from the Orlando area? Your first professional opportunities with the Orlando team.
Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome for me because I really played at all three levels of football, professionally, high school, and then collegiate, all in Orlando. So I don't know, it was a pretty cool accomplishment for me. I was
Yeah.
glad to play in front of my hometown and my friends and family again. That was awesome for my parents. They love coming to the Predators game and going to the Amway Center. Well, now Kia Center, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was an awesome time for me.
Yeah, I bet. So before we get too heavy into arena football and the whirlwind that was 2024 for you in particular, I wanted to dive into your experience at UCF. You touched on it with the Fiesta Bowl. Um, I went to UCF, so obviously I know plenty of the lore with UCF and that
Mhm.
2017 team, 2018 team, the Fiesta Bowl, all that stuff. There were
Yes,
some
sir.
ball players on all those teams in the late 2010s. Tell me about the experience being teammates with all those guys and kind of working your way up to the opportunity to playing in that festival.
Man, it was an awesome experience. Transferring to UCF, I instantly fell in love with the teammates. They have a great group of guys. Mackenzie Milton was there at the time.
Hmm.
Gabe Davis was there at the time. Richie Grant was there at the time. All these
Yeah.
guys are very talented guys. And the list goes on, but it was just an awesome opportunity to walk into with Coach Heupel and the coaching staff that they had and just put in the work with those guys and that talent and pushing every day to be a better athlete. And I also, when I transferred into UCF, I switched positions because at Notre Dame I was
Hmm.
playing DN. So I went back to playing tight end again. So that was also a good experience for me. It was challenging at first from going from DN because I took a year off with tight end
Right.
skills and going back to tight end, but it kind of translates. So it was fun being able to work on offense again and train as a tight end. And I just really liked it. I worked my butt off on scout team because, like I said, I had to sit out that 2018 season. So I really
Right.
just embraced that role to. I got to get to go against one of the best offenses in the country every day. So like that
Yeah.
was that was a privilege as itself going against
Yeah.
Mackenzie Milton and just going against the offensive line as well because they had some great guys like Jordan Johnson and
Uh-huh.
Wyatt Miller. So man, it was awesome that 2018 season. I just really fully embraced that the scout team player and help try to push my team to be great. And following that, I ended up getting an opportunity to show my talent. Coaches already knew what I kind of could do because what I proved during on the scout team.
Uh-huh.
So when I finally got the opportunity to show my abilities, it was a blessing, and I really loved my experience at UCF.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that team was so like I looked back at the roster preparing for this. I'm like, man, there were some guys on that team. Like they're like all across the board. So I can only imagine what it was like going up against them in the trenches every day. And you
Yeah.
mentioned playing tight end and defensive end. How did that kind of help you with the transition to arena football? Because When in that first year with the Predators, it was in the NAL. They still kind of had some Iron Man rules there, right?
Yes, sir. They definitely had the Ironman rules. You had to go both ways.
Uh-huh.
They also had the substitution rules in place, so which made it like mandatory. You had to go both ways, or you're going to get burnt for
Yeah.
that quarter. So it really kind of helped me a lot because all my life I played both ways. Whether it
Hmm.
was at offensive line or defensive line, tight end, linebacker, whatever it was, I always played both ways. So just having that ability, walking into a new adventure was really good. Like I felt like I had an upper hand because I was successful at high levels at both positions. So it was a good
Yeah.
thing to have and great experience to have under my belt.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, talk me through the decision to try out for the Predators. So you mentioned you were in the gym, kind of doing your thing. You were like, "Hey, I'm getting back in shape. My body's well rested after taking some time off." What was it that made you go, "All right, I'm doing this to try out for the Predators"?
I just really felt like I had a lot left in the tank. I felt like I had a dream and a goal that I fell short of, and I felt like I could still chase it. During that time off, it was hard for me to being away from football because I was being a football player is something I embraced and kind of became my identity. So it was hard stepping away from it. So it
Yeah.
really was the game really was calling me back, and I felt like it was time, and why not try to do something again and like go after a dream because it's only over with until you stop trying. So it's like,
Yeah.
why not give it one shot? And it kind of started off as a joke with a couple of me and my buddies I grew up with. We were at work
Uh-huh.
one day and we were looking at flag football teams and stuff like that. And then we were like, we saw the Orlando Predators try out, and we were like, hey, shoot, we might as well go do this. Let's try it and see what
Uh-huh.
happens. And yeah, my other friend, he actually ended up going to try out with me. And yeah, man, I'm glad I took that opportunity to lace up the cleats again. I took a chance and it worked out for the best.
So the options were Orlando Sport and Social, the Social Rec League, or or trying out for the Predators, and that's how it worked out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because I also felt like I haven't been in that type of shape in my life, like physically, and
Yeah,
I just felt real good. So I was like, I wonder what I could do on the football field now. So
for
I wanted to
sure.
see what I had left in the tank.
That's great. And props to you for taking the chance and going for it because obviously you did something right at that at that tryout where a couple years later you're still kicking in and still in the league.
Yes, sir.
So playing in Orlando, you had the opportunity to play for Coach EJ Burt,
Yes, sir.
who was just an absolute baller at
Yes,
OL and
sir.
DL in his day. What was it like learning the nuances of arena football from a guy like Coach Burt?
Man, it was awesome. Coach EJ is a great guy. He actually knew me a little bit in my high school days. I didn't even know about, but he was aware of me since I was little. But being able to work with him was awesome because, like you said, he's one of the greatest to do in arena football.
Yeah.
He's amazing at D line, and just to be able to work and craft with him every day was an awesome experience to have. He was very patient with me because he knew I was new to the arena game. I took
Hmm.
time off from football, so just being able to have somebody that was patient with me, that had knowledge of the game, that was able to pour into me and take time with me was just a blessing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. You go back and watch some of those early 2000s Predator games, and EJ was throwing people around.
Yeah,
Like
he was.
he was bouncing people out the club left and right.
Yeah, he definitely was. He definitely was.
So, you had a really solid rookie season in Orlando, but then after the 2023 season comes to an end, that's when the AFL kind of starts to pick up steam, and eventually you land with the Oregon Black Bears. So,
Yes, sir.
what went into that decision to sign with the Oregon Black Bears?
The AFL was being announced. They started announcing teams, and I was seeing teams and the locations all over the United States that they were releasing. I was waiting for Orlando to come back to see what they wanted to do if they wanted to sign me back. And
Hmm.
during my time waiting, Oregon Black Bears ended up reaching out to me. They liked what they saw and they wanted to sign me to a contract. So that was a tough decision for me going, thinking about leaving home to go out somewhere new, especially it being a
Yeah.
brand new organization. Um, but I always had this dream kind of to go out to the West Coast. So I was like, why not use football to live out one of my
Yeah.
dreams in life and at the same time play professional football? And it was a new opportunity to make a name for myself in another state. And
Yeah.
I'm not about like being the star, but opportunity to
Uh-huh.
be the face of a franchise and build my name. And
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
especially for a new organization. They don't have nobody as that guy. So
Yeah.
I thought that was an opportunity as well. But I just wanted to take a chance and try something new.
Yeah, and Oregon is a great place.
It
Like
really is.
I know you were out there for a couple months, but it is a really beautiful place out there, especially during the time of year that you were there. So how
Yeah.
was the experience living in Oregon for that time?
Man, it was great weather. We had a couple rainy days or cloudy days, but when it was
Yeah.
sunny, man, I loved it. And like, I absolutely loved being in Oregon, like you said, because the nature and everything. It's just
Yeah.
perfect weather. There's no humidity. Um,
Uh-huh.
the
I
trees
knew
up.
that was coming. I was like, "Yep, the Florida boy. He's gonna know about that humidity."
Yeah, absolutely no humidity, which I
Yeah.
absolutely loved. The trees were greener, the birds were happier. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
man, I like being on the West Coast, and it was a great time living in Oregon.
So on paper, the Oregon roster was really solid, and I think that's one of the biggest what ifs of the entire 2024 arena football season. Like not just with the AFL and I mean across the entire arena and indoor spectrum. Was you go back and look at this Oregon roster, there were some guys on there that if things would have worked out, we might have been talking about Oregon versus Albany, Oregon versus Billings, and the Arena Bowl at the end of the year. So, what was your experience in like playing in Salem, Oregon before things went a little off the rails with that team?
Man, like you said, we had a group of guys, and it was awesome being with that group of guys. I loved each and every one of them. We had a lot of talent on there. We worked hard. I love the coaching staff. Coach Chuck Jones is a great coach as well. He put
Hmm.
together a great roster, like you said. We ended up going through training camp. We put in a lot of hard work. I was excited because, like you said, we had guys. So seeing that in the camp and seeing what we could do, I was like, okay, we might can actually make a run for this.
Yeah.
And then the season approaches, and then we have our preseason game against Washington. We ended up winning that, and then the next game we had our first game of the season against Washington again, and we won again. And so
Hmm.
things were looking on the upright. And yeah, we had the chance to really go far and undefeated. Technically, we didn't lose a game.
There you
They
go.
gave
Yeah.
us a loss because they gave us a loss because of a forfeit. But I ain't gonna get into all
Yeah.
that. But yeah, man, it was a great team. I love the coaching staff, and it just sucks that we weren't able to show the world what we could do. And we had a lot of talented guys that weren't able to go on during the season and finish their season. It
Right.
just sucks, man, because like as a professional athlete, you're expecting everything to be in order together, and you're just here to play ball
Right.
and have fun. And so when stuff starts hitting the fan, and it's just like, man, like what is going on? I'm just trying to play football. I'm just trying to chase my dream, and
Yeah.
it was a sad deal, but
Yeah, so what was that like from the player's perspective? So I think everyone kind of has an idea of how it went down, but I don't think we ever got a full story with the Oregon situation from that player's perspective.
at first, it was great. Like I said, at first it was
Hmm.
amazing. They had the stuff. It was the first year organization, so you didn't expect everything to be together, but
Right.
they did the best they could, and it was great. So as when stuff started hitting the fan, games started getting canceled. Players weren't able to get paychecks. It
Hmm.
kind of put like uncertainty into your day, and it's like, man, like what's gonna happen next? Like one week we're preparing for a game, we're getting ready, we're all excited, and then the next day the game gets canceled, and it's just like, dang, man, that's like just hurts the soul a little bit.
Yeah, for
Especially
sure.
especially in football, you try to build momentum, and week after week playing helps build momentum for the season, helps knock off rust, helps build cohesion in a unit on offense and
Yeah.
defense. So not just having those breaks, not being able to play games, it kind of hurt as well too. It definitely, I would say, like kind of messed with my head a little bit, not to like a full extent, but like it was kind of
Yeah.
depressing because I took a chance. I left home. I took a chance. I trusted people,
Yeah.
and just to sit out there and all I want to do play football and knowing good and well that our team is capable of competing with guys, and
Yeah.
it was just like hard just to sit there and like it was like, man, I might just want to chuck this 2024 season behind me and just come back in 2025 because it
Yeah.
was just a everyday thing. And but I got through it, and I was humbled to go through that experience. And like I said, I ended up good on the other side. So
Yeah, it all seemed to work itself out in the end for you. Yeah, it's just this the I think we'll look back on this and like even looking back on it now, it's crazy to put it all together. But I think as we get a little bit more info, as the picture becomes a little bit more clear of how things transpired, it's going to be like, man, we lived through that. And I just watched, like,
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
live through that. And it's just an entirely different experience. But tell me more about playing for Coach Jones. Like you said, he assembled one hell of a roster, and he seemed like a real players coach. And what was that experience like?
Man, it was a great experience. Coach Jones is an awesome guy. He's a very energetic, very vocal guy, and the way he hyped me up. Whether it was practicing a game, he
Yeah.
would give us a speech and he would get me going. And he
Yeah.
always makes sure you were good. Like even during the times when stuff was going wrong, he looked out
Right.
for us. He's like, look, guys, because like most of that, all that stuff wasn't really in his control. So
Uh-huh.
he did the best he could to support us. He always looked after me. And I actually came out there to Oregon like 2 weeks earlier and crashed at his place just because I wanted to get it adapted to Oregon,
Very
stuff like
nice.
that. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, he looked after me for those 2 weeks, accepted me as a family, and yeah, man, he's an awesome coach, and I hope he's coaching down the road in the near future.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's awesome to hear that they had that type of bonding with Coach Jones. See, I've seen some of the interviews he did with some other outlets, and he just seemed like a fireball of energy at all times. Where I was like, man, they're just asking him about football, and he's getting me fired up. So I can only imagine what the pregame speech might have looked like.
Yeah, man, he's very energetic with that West Coast flavor to him. So it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's an amazing vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I would be kicking myself if I didn't ask this question, and it's about the venue out in Oregon, the Oregon State
Okay.
Fairgrounds Pavilion. Um,
It
was it as bad as it looked from a player's perspective? Because it looked pretty rough from the outside looking
was
in.
rough. I will say this. It was rough.
Okay.
Was it
Okay.
was it playable? Yes, it was playable.
Okay. Yeah.
It might have not looked like the best. Didn't have the best walls.
Right.
Wasn't the best lighting, but it was definitely playable, and we made it work with the games that we did have there. But
Right.
it definitely was a rough environment, as you could see from film and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so from some of the streams that were available, I was like, hold on, I'm like having to rub my eyes. I'm like, what is that wall? What is going on there? Did you ever take a hit into the wall there, or hit
uh,
somebody into it?
I don't think I hit. I try to stay away from those walls because,
Yeah, I don't blame you.
yeah, the way they were looking, I was like, yeah, I'm not even gonna even try to do that.
Yeah,
But yeah, so yeah, I didn't actually ever hit one of those walls, thank the Lord.
yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely an interesting arena to play in. Made it feel more gladiator type style.
Yeah. Yeah, and the roof being a lot closer than normal, especially
Yeah,
coming from Orlando and the Kia Center. It was a
exactly.
little bit different than the Kia Center. We'll just
It,
say that.
it was definitely was just a tad bit.
Just a tad bit, yeah. So you ended up finishing the season with the Albany Firebirds in 2024. Obviously, you had a great experience there because you re-signed. You were the first player re-signed this season. Tell me about how that came to be.
So yeah, man, I was sitting out there in Oregon. Officially announced that the season was over with. So we had a couple guys still sitting out there. Luckily, we still had our team hotel. So thank you for the organization for that, and thank you for Coach
Yeah,
Jones for being able to at least still provide us somewhere to live while we're still trying to
yeah,
figure out. So I was sitting out there 2 to 3 weeks, just like still training in the gym because we had a gym to go to, and I was trying to, like I said, decide what I want to do with the 2024 season because kind of what I went through, the ups and downs, got to my head. So I was like, maybe it's just time to come back in 2025. So I was waiting, and I actually had a team before Albany hit me up. Two teams hit me up on the same day.
okay,
West Texas ended up reaching out to me, and we texted back and forth. We talked about signing contracts and stuff like that. I asked them to
hmm,
give me a little bit of time to think it over because I wanted to do. I just wanted to think it over, talk with my family. Like I said, make sure my heart's still in football because I went through a little bit. And then that
yeah,
night, Coach Ware reached out to me, asked me what I was doing. We had a great talk. I ended up signing a contract to go out to Albany. They flew me in. As soon as I got out there, fell in love with the organization. Most professional organization I've been a part of in arena football.
that's
Um,
amazing.
from coaching staff to trainers to owners. It was a lot of love when I got there. And I was a little worried about that because it was oof, not all the way towards the end of the season, but there was like
Hmm.
5 games left in the season, and I think it was 3 games left in the season. And at that time, this chemistry already built up. Uh, they got their
Yeah.
guys, and it's like I'm the new guy, I'm an outsider. So I was worried, like guys don't have to accept you, and like they can make
Yeah.
your job a lot harder. So like I was worried about that. But when I came in there, the teammates embraced me. I already had a good relationship with Coach Ware and Coach Cisse and Coach Hollis because they were actually down in Orlando with me my rookie
Uh-huh.
year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so I already knew that I had people up there I could trust. I was more worried about my teammates accepting me. And
Hmm.
man, they accepted me like a brother, like I've been there all along. And we just got to work. We and we just got to work, and the rest is history.
That's great. That's great. What was there any particular moment where you're like, all right, I'm a part of the gang? Like what was there that moment where it clicked, or was it just like
Um,
you put in the work a couple times and it eventually got there?
I think it was. I would definitely say when we were playing against Orlando, and
Okay.
I had to play against my whole team. I ran out that
Uh-huh.
tunnel. The fireworks started going. The chips started chipping. The trash talk started going back and forth, and
Uh-huh.
I started supporting my guys. They got my back, so it was like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm here now. So it was a great
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
That's fantastic. So, like you said, you joined about halfway through the season, made the playoff run, got to the Arena Bowl,
yes,
the
sir.
infamous brawl at the mall. What was that experience like from your perspective? Well, I know there's a lot of things and stuff behind the scenes that whole week and leading up to it, but in terms of the actual playing the game and being getting the opportunity to play on CBS Sports in front of millions of people, like tell me a little bit about that.
Man, that was an awesome experience. They did a great job with that, being able to play in the mall, especially next to the Meadowlands, because I'm actually a Jets fan. So like to be
Okay.
next to the Jets stadium was a kind of cool thing for me. But
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
be able to play in the mall was kind of like a dream like scenario. And even stepping into the arena and looking up, and they had like a sky roof, so you could see out, you could see the clouds and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it was like a bubble. So it was just like, man, like when you think of arena football, I never thought about this.
Yeah,
So
no kidding.
so like leading up to that whole week and like prepping for that game, there was a lot of hype and a lot of emotions, especially it being a championship game. So
Yeah.
man, it was a great experience for us. Fell short, but I absolutely enjoyed my time playing and Dream All of America. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, I remember watching that game and I was like, is this the first game, arena football game in history with natural lighting? Just because I was watching the game, I'm like, there's like a yellowish hue to all the players because I'm like, oh yeah, that's the sun because there's just a clear
Yeah,
dome. And as
that's
the
how
game
many.
went on, the artificial lights started to hit. I'm like, okay, now this is looking like traditional arena football. So heading into 2025, Arena Football One, a new league. You'll be with the same team, but in a new league. Tell me about what you're excited about with Arena Football One in 2025 and beyond.
Man, I'm excited for a new era, a new beginning. I have full
Hmm.
faith in the front office and the commissioner that they're going to get stuff ran right this year because that's what
Yeah,
happened in 2024. Nobody wants to see that happen again.
no.
So, man, I'm just excited to play football. They're expanding to new teams, so I'm excited to venture out to new areas as well. And I'm definitely excited to get back with the group of guys that we had, and just get back to work because we definitely have a chip on our shoulder and feel like I have unfinished business for that team. So to be able to chase the first Arena Football One championship is an amazing experience
Yeah.
to have, and it's a great motivation to go after. So I'm excited, and I can't wait. I'm looking forward to the 2025 season because I know Coach Square and the coach staff and the whole front office is assembling a great team as well. And man, I'm just sitting back and watching and putting in work and waiting.
The first player in Albany Firebirds Arena Football One history, bring him that first championship. The story writes itself. I'm excited to see you hit the field and see it happen.
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much for joining the show today and talking through your football journey. I think it's a really great story of perseverance and on multiple levels. I mean, you look back at what you went through with college and you persevered and you got back to playing football. You look at 2024, the roller coaster that it was. You persevered and it ended up working out for you, and the future's looking bright. So, a really great story of perseverance from you, Jonathan. I really appreciate you hopping on and sharing that with us.
Man, I appreciate you having me. And it was definitely had a fun time talking.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again, maybe before the season, maybe mid-season. I don't know. We'll see how it works out. But I'm rooting for your continued success. Where can people follow you on socials? Because you're starting to get into some content creation.
Yes, sir, I am. So my Instagram, right now I'm really only on Instagram.
Yeah,
It's __ life of bird, followed by two underscores. That's my handle. And yeah, you can follow me there. I'm gonna start trying to post workout videos because like I said, I'm in the gym, so might as well.
yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll link the Instagram profile on the YouTube video and the Spotify
Okay.
and Apple Podcast episode. So anybody listening, you can very easily go follow Jonathan. And where did the bird nickname come from? What's the origin there?
So it started in AAU football. I first started playing football. I got down to my football stance and my feet kind of stuck out like a bird.
Oh
So
no.
so there was two names that they were going to call me, um,
Uh-huh.
and one of them was Big Bird. And so throughout my life, it was Big Bird. And then as I got older, it went down to Bird. So yeah,
That's amazing.
that's where the name came from.
Okay.
Started back in AAU football. It's been with me my whole life. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, everyone go follow Big Bird on on Instagram. Like I said, the link is under the YouTube description and the Spotify and Apple Podcast episode. So, Jonathan, really appreciate you again, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me again. Thank you so much.
Big thanks again to Jonathan for joining the show today and talking through his football journey. Again, a story of perseverance with what he had to go through towards the end of his college football career to kind of this rebirth of his football career in arena football, and some of the perseverance that he had to go through with some of the stuff he dealt with the AFL in 2024. So glad to see that he was able to land on his feet with the Albany Firebirds. And I've said it a couple times, but being the first Albany Firebird in arena football one history, that's pretty cool. So jot that one down for trivia night, folks. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's been happening in the IFL and AF1. We'll start with the IFL. I mentioned earlier how there's been some not so good news shared this week. And that not so good news has been rumored a little bit over the past week or so, but it was announced earlier on Wednesday that Duke City and Frisco are going dormant in 2025. Towards the end of last week slash over the last weekend, I wrote a blog about Duke City and kind of how it just felt like something was off. It felt like they were about to go dormant. It just, something was off, and that ended up being true. So go check that out on offthewallfb.com and see how well that aged or how poorly that aged. I think it aged pretty well. I haven't read it since the news dropped, but it is the sad reality of indoor and arena football. Unfortunately, a lot of these teams, they are short lived. Not everyone is like an Arizona Rattlers or an Iowa Barnstormers where they have such longevity and such rich history. Frisco was only around for a couple years. Duke City had a pretty good run over the past decade or so in different leagues before hopping over to the IFL in the late 2010s, early 2020s. But it's just a sad reality of indoor and arena football where I think Duke City and Frisco suffered from different reasons for their dormancy. Frisco, it seems like it was a lack of want from the ownership to want to continue it, being passed down from the original founder slash owner to some of the kids of the owner. They didn't seem to want to really go through all the hassle of everything. So the options were sold or to be sold or be folded, and it sounds like they're at least folding in for 2025. So we'll see what happens beyond that. Duke City, it just seemed like they were a mess all over the place, whether it be on the field at times, off the field. Again, we talked about it in that blog on offthewallfb.com, where it was just a struggle to get a press release. It was a struggle to get a roster. Like to this day, we never got a 2024 roster on the Duke City website, which is insane to think about. But I think it's even more sad for the players, and it's sad for the fans too. But I'm really empathetic to the players here, just because less teams means less players. That's the reality. I feel like that doesn't need much explaining, but less players means less opportunities for individuals to showcase their abilities or to develop or to potentially take that next step that we've seen a lot of players take to go from the IFL to the UFL, the IFL to the CFL, and continue their football journeys. And as they hope to grow to the next level, grow to that outdoor game with one less team around. I know two teams are leaving, but Fisher's Freight is coming in. So two leaving, one coming. We're down one, a negative net one team going into next year. That's an entire roster of players that are not going to get an opportunity. So there's what, 22, 25, somewhere in that range of players on a game day roster. That's 22 to 25 less players that are going to get that opportunity to show what they can do and ultimately get out there on the field. So I really feel for the players that won't be getting that opportunity, and the fans as well. Duke City, like I said, had a pretty good run up until past couple years. Oddly enough, it was like when they traded Nate Davis is when when the wheels started to fall off for the franchise. Don't know if that's correlated or not, but Frisco had an amazing social and marketing team thanks to their partnership with the Dallas Stars, and it seemed like they were a very well-run organization, but the want from the people at the top just wasn't there. And if you don't have that in such a niche sport and niche league like indoor football and the IFL is, it's kind of DOA. It's kind of dead on arrival. So it the door is open for them to return in 2026, according to the press release that, or not press release, but article that the IFL posted, which we'll dive into a little bit further in a second. They said that Duke City and Frisco each retain their rights to re-enter the league in 2026. So they're not totally dead, but more often than not, when you see teams go into a quote dormancy like this, it usually means it's probably the last that we've seen. So if I had to pick one or the other, I would imagine we get Frisco back before we get Duke City, just because Frisco's problems that cause them to go away are a little bit more fixable if they could find the right partner to buy it, find the right partner to run it, whatever it may be. Duke City is just seems to be a mess behind the scenes and maybe a little bit more tricky. So I'd be willing to bet that we see Frisco before we see Duke City, but the IFL kind of tried to bury the announcement of these two teams going dormant. It had been talked about amongst some of the indoor football forums for the past 5 days, 4 or 5 days or so, and the IFL released a like a news release saying, "Oh, the schedule's being dropped on October 31st. Happy Halloween." It was like, "Oh, cool, schedule's coming." But when you click into the article, they talk about, "Oh, we're going on year 17. That's a great accomplishment," which it is. It absolutely is. But then they just kind of casually slipped in that Duke City and Frisco will be going dormant in 2025 and could possibly come back in 2026. So Frisco, they already put out a statement about it on their socials. Duke City, not surprised to see that they have not posted anything on their socials. They have not posted anything in, what is it, 3 months at this point on any of their socials. So that just kind of goes to show that the blood was in the water for Duke City, and Frisco was a little bit more surprising. And Frisco at least put out a statement, but it's just a bizarre situation. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about as time passes, but Duke City and Frisco, they're out. Fisher's Freight is coming in, so the league will have 15 teams in 2025, unless something crazy happens over the next couple of weeks to make it an even 16 again. It's looking like it's going to be 15 teams for 2025, and schedule releases on October 31st. So with there being 15 teams, odd number of teams means not every single team will be playing every single week. So at least one team is going to be on a bye week every single week of the season, which makes things interesting towards the back half of the season. Like, say you got a couple teams that are fighting for playoff spots. One team might be on a bye week the last week of the season. So that makes an interesting little element to it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll see what the schedules look like when they drop on Halloween. But again, a bizarre situation that I'm sure we'll learn more about as time passes. And moments after Frisco was put out the statement saying that they were going dormant, It was announced that former Frisco head coach Andre Coles was signed on to be an assistant head coach and offensive coordinator for the Tulsa Oilers. So that's a super interesting situation because Tulsa and Frisco had a little bit of a rivalry over the past couple of years. Can you call it a rivalry if it was one-sided towards Frisco? I don't know, but it was a regional rivalry that they were really leaning into and really building up. And the fact that Coles went from Frisco, one side of the rivalry that was dominating, to the other side of the rivalry in Tulsa, creates an interesting situation here. And it's an interesting situation because you can go back and listen to any off the wall episode from the 2024 IFL season. And we talked about this at nauseum about how the Tulsa Oilers were a consistent quarterback away from being a contender in the playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference. The defense for Tulsa was outstanding. Multiple all IFL players all up and down the defense. They had the league leader in receptions in Lex Rosario, and they had a really, really great running back in Jared Ware Jr., who was dynamic and was able to stretch the field horizontally for the offense. But they just could not get consistent quarterback play until the end of the year when it was a little too late. So Frisco doesn't have a team anymore. Frisco had a very talented quarterback who won the MVP in 2023 and was arguably in contention for it in 2024. Frisco's former head coach is now the offensive coordinator for Tulsa. So you have a team in Tulsa, great defense, great pieces around the quarterback, who was a quarterback away from being a contender. You have a quarterback who won an MVP award and is one of the most dynamic athletes in all of indoor and arena football, who's looking for a team that needs quarterback, MVP level quarterback. I'm not saying it's happening, but I'm saying it definitely should happen and probably will happen. TJ Edwards going to Tulsa makes way too much sense, being already familiar and the fact that he has excelled the way he has with Andre Coles in Frisco the past couple of seasons. I just don't see TJ Edwards going anywhere else. And this just seems like such an easy home run if they just swing the bat. All they got to do is swing the bat and make contact with this signing, and it'll be a absolute home run free agency signing, and just makes way too much sense and would realistically put Tulsa at the top of the Eastern Conference in terms of what they can do on the field and the expectation for them moving forward. Frisco's no longer a threat in the East because they literally don't exist. Green Bay was the only other team that had a winning record in the Eastern Conference last year. That opens up the playing field for the entire Eastern Conference, and I think you see Tulsa slide into that position of being a dominant force in the Eastern Conference. And if they can start winning some games, they already have arguably the best home fan support in all of the IFL, selling out 10,000 seats a game when they've just been kind of so-so over the past 2 years. You put MVP level quarterback play with that all IFL defense in front of 10,000 people, Tulsa suddenly becomes the most exciting place to watch a game in all of indoor and arena football. So it's an interesting situation. It makes way too much sense for it not to happen, but we'll just have to wait and see how that comes to be. In other free agency news, we've got some other teams that made some signings. We'll start with Fisher's Freight. They had their first ever free agent signing announced, and it was none other than friend of the show, Aaron Jackson. So we had Aaron on a few weeks ago talking about the 2024 season with the Duke City Gladiators, who are no longer around. Hence why Aaron is with Fisher's Freight. So he's just a tackling machine, and he's just a great piece to build that defense around. He spent time at DB, slipped in at linebacker a few times and rushed the quarterback and really made some impactful plays when Duke City had some injury woes last year. He returned some kicks. I mean, he is all over the place, and he is just a dynamic player on that defense. And they also brought over another player from that Duke City defense, Tamar Hart. So Tamar Hart played very, very well and was an honorable mention for some of the all IFL lists on defense. And he's joining Aaron after playing with Aaron in Duke City and with the Omaha Beef. So this will be the third place that Aaron Jackson and Tamar Hart will have played together. So it's really interesting to see them kind of group up. And we talked about that in Aaron's interview a few episodes back about how he's really developed a bond with some of these guys. And it just goes to show that he wasn't kidding. They got a really, really strong bond here. Fisher's also signed quarterback Jaya Wright. He was announced earlier this week. He showed tremendous upside last year with the Sioux Falls Storm with his dual threat ability, which will be a great fit with head coach Dixie Wooten's offense and what he typically likes to run with. What we saw last year with Daquan Neal, what we saw the year before with Dalton Sneed, what we've seen with Daquan Neal in Iowa, what we've seen with Drew Powell, like all these players that have excelled in Dixie Wooten's systems throughout the years have been dual threat guys, and Jaya Wright has shown that upside and that ability to be that. So we'll have to see what players they end up building around Jaya at that quarterback position, but could be a sneaky good fit for the Fisher's Freight there. San Antonio's also been on a tear, announcing a handful of signings on their social pages, but the one that I'm super excited about since the signings we talked about last week is running back CJ Odom. So CJ Odom played for the Arizona Rattlers last year, and he was able to step in relief for Shannon Brooks after Brooks had to miss some time throughout the season. But Odom is a very powerful runner, and he runs very angrily. And I mean that in the best way possible. He's a very strong runner, and I'm excited to see him be the focal point of an offense. And if he can continue to run the way that he has in the past, and if he can be the feature back in San Antonio and stay healthy, look out, because that is going to be a great fit for CJ Odom if he can bring a little bit of balance to that San Antonio offense that was the tops in the league last year. I really like that fit for both the team and the player. And then looking at Bay Area, they brought back a pair of very talented rookie DBs from last season in Joe Fouché and Tyler Watson. They were just a phenomenal duo, and they were just absolute menaces in the defensive backfield for Bay Area, and were the primary reason why they were so dominant on the defensive side of the ball. Fouché, he's just a big play machine. He just seems to have an eye for the ball, and just anywhere the ball is, Fouché is not too far behind. He just has that big playability. And Tyler Watson, he had so many pass breakups last year. I think at one point he had twice as much as any other player not on Bay Area. So Bay Area is just, as a whole, is on another level defensively, and they're bringing back two of the main pieces that made it all work last year. Again, Bay Area is not going anywhere. They're going to continue to be a problem for the rest of the league. And again, bringing back Joe Fouché and Tyler Watson is a great start for that defense. Last, we got the Sioux Falls Storm. Xavier Jackson at running back is coming back. At times, he was the lone bright spot on the Storm in 2024. The Storm were not a very good football team in 2024. And I think he's going to be a great piece for them to build around in 2025. So it's going to be a totally new changing of the guard in Sioux Falls with new coaching. I think the head coach is sticking around. I don't know if they've announced if he's sticking around, but there's at least been a shuffle up on the offensive coordinator spot and some of those positions as well. So we'll see what announcements they make, but running back Xavier Jackson is a fantastic start for the Storm. And moving over to the AF1, the Firebirds continue to be on a tear, announcing signed players. They are really leading the pack and leading by example in this league. Some of the players that are going to be joining our guy, Jonathon MacCollister, in Albany this year is Isaiah Scott. He started with Oregon, similar to MacCollister, but he went to West Texas, who also folded midseason. So Isaiah Scott went Oregon, West Texas, and then Albany. Isaiah Scott had a 7-touchdown game for West Texas last year, and he's just an absolutely dynamic playmaker at wide receiver. And if they can get him on the field a lot more, I know towards the end of the season, Albany had a too many mouths to feed. And I don't want to say it's a problem, because it's not a bad thing, but there was just times where it felt like Isaiah Scott should have been in the game more often than he was, just because they had so many other wide receivers and so many other weapons that they wanted to get involved. So some of those other weapons have departed for other arena football organizations freeing up some of that room for Isaiah Scott to be a more consistent contributor on that offense. And then on defense, they brought back a handful of names from last year's team at linebacker. Trayvon Shorts, he was with the team last year. He played a little bit of fullback as well and had some big runs that really busted some games wide open. And then DJ Walden is coming back at linebacker as well. So a lot of consistency on the defensive side of the ball for the Albany Firebirds. And at DB, they're bringing over Jadarius Byrd. So Jadarius Byrd played for a handful of IFL teams over the past couple of years, including the Quad City Steamwheelers, the Iowa Barnstormers, and the Jacksonville Sharks in 2024. He's bringing a lot of indoor football experience and coming over to AF1. It should be interesting to see how he makes that transition, but it shouldn't be as difficult as going from like outdoor to indoor, going from indoor rules to more arena style rules. Should be an easier adaptation, is that a word? Adaptation. That's the one I'm looking for. Should be an easier adaptation from IFL to AF1 for Jadarius. But again, Albany continues to lead the pack and lead by example with their signings and with their social and with everything that they do. And they're going to be another very dangerous team for the rest of the AF1 to look out for. And then heading over to Kansas, all three Kansas teams have made some announcements. We'll start with Salina. They signed a couple of former Oklahoma State wide receivers. So Torrance Carr and Josh Stewart were announced back to back. So they're kind of rebuilding an old Oklahoma State offense in Salina. And linebacker Kerry Starks is also coming back for a second season with the Liberty. So he is the I think the Salina Liberty put on X that he is the vocal leader of the defense and plays to the echo of the whistle, which is something we'd love to see. So starting to see some consistency in Salina as well. We talked about some of the offensive pieces that are coming back from last year, starting to see some of the same on the defensive side of the ball as well. So it looks like the Oklahoma State wide receivers are going to be a great addition to Salina offense. It's just a matter of how well can they adapt to the indoor game. It's not always the easiest thing for those types of receivers, especially those big-bodied receivers like Torrance Carr is, to make that transition. But if they can be a dangerous weapon. And then moving over to Southwest Kansas, they re-signed a couple of key cogs in the machine from last year's team, starting at wide receiver Daquan Bailey Brown. He's an absolutely dynamic wide receiver and kick returner. He's one of the most electrifying players in all of indoor and arena football. And the fact that they were able to bring him back and get him back in the mix immediately is a great sign of things to come for the Storm. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're bringing back Michael Lawson at DB, who he had a phenomenal year last year. He had more interceptions than games played. I think he had 6 interceptions through 5 games, missed some time due to injury. But when he played, man, he was unbelievable, and he was such a ball hawk, and he even caused a few fumbles as well. So it's not just interceptions, just great pieces for Southwest Kansas to build around, and we'll see how they continue to build out their roster from here. But when you start with Daquan Bailey Brown and Michael Lawson on each side of the ball, that's pretty good. And then moving over to Wichita, they announced Clinton Solomon is coming back as their head coach in 2025. So in arena and indoor football, it is so important to have that consistency at the head coaching position to be able to build off of the successes and triumphs and tribulations and trials and all that stuff from the year before. We know Wichita has had plenty of that in 2024. So the fact that they're bringing back Solomon in 2025 seems to be a good start. They haven't announced any player signings just yet, but I'm sure those will be coming now that the head coach has been locked in. So that's your Kansas update for all 3 Kansas teams. And we should be hearing a lot more announcements from some of the expansion teams, maybe another team possibly being announced this week. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's probably who we think it is, but we'll see how it gets announced. But we should be hearing some more announcements through the end of the week and into next week. So please make sure you're following us on all of our socials at Off the Wall FB on Instagram, X/Twitter, and TikTok to make sure you're staying up to date. I'll be sharing some of my thoughts on some of these things that are announced as they're announced. And you'll even get the occasional bad meme, bad joke poking fun at some of the followers that I have that are diehards of certain teams, and giving them a nice little rib and being a member of the arena and indoor football community, because that's what it's all about. We're a community here, folks. So that's all we got for the show today. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Mr. MacCollister. Please go give him a follow on Instagram if you haven't already. Give us a follow on all of our socials as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show on the show page, click a bunch of buttons, check mark the episode, download it. I'm sure it all helps. Do all that, do all the things and stuff. So only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend 45, 50 minutes. I'm never really on those guesses, but I guess that's part of the fun to see where it ends up. But the fact that you chose to spend that amount of time with us today on Off the Wall means a lot. So appreciate the support. We'll see you on the socials, and we'll see what continues to get announced over the next couple of days. Take care. Bye.